Welcome to the Blood, Sweat, and Cinema podcast. Myself and Zach have a very unique individual, personal friend of mine, great martial artist, fabulous film director, choreographer, and great father, husband, grandfather, Isaac Florentine. Welcome.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you very much. And
Thank you, brother.
thank you, Zach.
Yep.
And so the audience should know we've known each other for 23 years or something.
Wow, 24.
24 years. Okay. Fanny's run.
When we first met was the screening of Special Forces, MCU, at the little theater on the corner of Doheny and Wood.
Correct. Yes.
That was it. And there's a lot of bouncing hand was there.
Yes.
Who introduced you to this?
Sugar A1.
Okay. Don would introduce.
Alex Sternberg came.
Richard Norton.
Yeah.
There was a full house.
Yes.
If I remember when Scott did that kick at the side in the truck, where he came up, spin kick, land this, and then spun again, that got a great applause from the entire theater. Remember that very well. And then I think Jean-Claude saw Special Force somewhere along the line as well, right there. Because I remember he made a statement that Scott had very good technique.
Yeah.
I remember that. But anyway, going back, Isaac, growing up in Israel, what you grow up, what's it like in Israel? And are you a sportive person? How do you end up being in martial arts? Were you doing another sport before? Or take us through it.
So growing up in Israel, then it was a small country, 2.5, maybe 3 million people. I was not athletic. One of the reasons is when I was 4 years old, I was a mischievous kid. I ran through a glass door and cut my eye severely, and I hardly see in my right eye. I have like a big scar in my iris. My parents were Holocaust survivors, so they were I was a small child, I had an older brother who was more athletic than me. So I couldn't play because of my eye sports like soccer, football, or basketball because my depth dimension was a little bit awkward. So I was not really into sport. But I loved to wrestle and was not shy of fighting, but it was not me fighting. It was like kids wrestling just for the sake of, okay, let's see who can bring somebody down as fast as possible. And I saw karate the first time in a James Bond movie, You Only Live Twice, 1967, around that time. And I was fascinated. First, it was the very first James Bond I saw. And I was fascinated by the martial arts techniques that were there. By the way, the fights were choreographed by Don Ray.
I was just going to say
Yes. And they're really valid and really good fight scenes. So anyway, there was a scene there that they're training in a castle, and you had students of Masoyama doing breaking and showing some martial arts technique, and I was fascinating so much. That was the very first movie that I went and saw it in matinee 4 times. Didn't even tell my parents. But I got that name, karate, because then judo was it. And I asked my brother is 8.5 years older than me, and he was, for me, has a lot of general knowledge in everything. And asking, what is karate? Can you really, I read that you can really hit somebody with one blow. What is it? And he gave me some information. He told me a little bit about karate, and I started to get interested about it. Remember, that's an era that no internet, nothing is really written about it, especially in Hebrew. Around that time, the Tokyo Circus came to Israel. Now I'm talking about 1969. And I'm not a big fan of circus, but they tried a demonstration in the circus. I went to see it again 3 times, only because of the karate demonstration. And I made up my mind, I want to study it. I want to learn it. At that time in Tel Aviv, there was a Krav Maga dojo that was opened by Amy Lichtenfeld, the founder of Krav Maga. And that's really it. Around the same time, there was a bowling alley not far from my house, and I'm going there. And I'm going there with a friend of mine that is my neighbor. And we're kind of being bullied by four big kids. And again, I was not shy of fighting, but I felt like humiliated. Said, I wanted to fight these four kids, but they were big. Now, shortly after, in that bowling alley, they opened a dojo. It was a state-of-the-art dojo. It had a spring floor that was brought from Japan. The teacher was Gideon Kadari. Gideon Kadari in Hebrew, Gideon Kadari in English. He was an Israeli that was a judoka. Went trained in Japan for about 8 years. Judo, but also Kyokushin.
Now, did he go to Japan specifically to teach to learn martial art?
Yes, to train in judo in Japan, but also in karate. So they opened a dojo there. Now I came to my parents and I said, listen, I want to start with it. My parents were dead set against it.
Why?
Because they thought it's violence. They told me, listen, we saw a lot of violence in our life. Again, when my father was in Auschwitz, survived it. My mother was in Bergen-Belsen. For them, they didn't want to see me punched in the face, but I was dead set to do it. And I had ammunition. I said, look, I'm a good student in school. It won't, why? I mean, I want to do it, you know? And finally, they agreed. My father said, in one condition, keep on playing the guitar. And until now, I play the guitar. So we went to the dojo and they told me, listen, you're too young to start karate, because karate then was for rough people. You have to start with judo. I said, fine, I'll start with judo. I started with judo. Never forget my first lesson. There was a kid who was a bit younger than me, a little bit. For an hour, he threw me again and again and again and again. I came home with red hands and low ego. But a few months after, I was nagging everybody and they let me start training in karate. Now, because it was so hard for me to get into the dojo and to start to train karate, I made a commitment to myself. I said, I will never, ever, ever leave it. No matter what, I will never leave it. And I kept it until now. So that was a Kyokushinkai dojo. After about 2 years, Gideon Kadari left and to open another dojo, but the instructor who came was from Japan. His name was Hiroshi Koriara. And Hiroshi Sensei was teaching a hybrid of Shotokan, like JKA, and Seishinkai Shitoi. And by then, I started really to have to collect a library of books. The very first book that I really got is actually still here, and this is Karate by Masuyama. I spent all of my bar mitzvah money buying it. Cost me 75 Israeli liras, and I didn't tell my parents. So I basically stayed with Hiroshi, and then we were training, and around 1970 through, no, 74, 75, I started looking around and I said, okay, traditional karate is good, but something is not working. At that time, Muay Thai started to come to Israel, just did the kind of first step, and I was thinking to myself, maybe I should go and do Muay Thai. One day, came to our dojo a visitor, actually two visitors. One was a very handsome UNIFIL, the United Nations officer. They were then stationed in Lebanon. And a guy that came with a suit and tie, looked like a banker. And I remember coming to the dojo, this 1975. And we're hearing, there's a guy, just 50-degree black belt, and then 50-degree black belt, Godam, was like, wow. Because then in Israel, you had less than 10 people that had even first now. It was like totally the beginning. To our surprise, his name is Thomas Webb. Now, what he did in that session that he could was amazing. He was fast, He was accurate and he was deadly efficient. I remember, and we didn't understand what he was saying because he had an accent that was kind of French accent. Uh, it was hard to understand him, but when he moved, it was easy to understand him. Now I remember we were like we set us up with a partner, and Hiroshi Sensei was training with him, and we heard after a few minutes, so I should move free fighting, and we hear like somebody took a machine gun. We see Hiroshi flying in the air, going down in the mat. He comes up and he bows, take you, take you, take you. And then Tana Sensei took a net, rolled a minute, held one of the advanced combat, hold it, and he showed his reverse punch, Gyakotsuki and Magil. And he was talking about principles that then it was totally theoretically, we didn't understand. One was double twist motion and one was a kick shock. And the impact was amazing impact. After he left, he basically he came by chance. He had relatives in Israel. He was living in Sweden. But a few words about him, because he's still my teacher 51 years later, and a very dear friend of mine. He was born in Hungary. And, his parents were, his father was killed by the Nazis, the Germans. Managed to fled to France after the war. He basically grew up in an orphanage. When he was 17, he joined the French Foreign Legion, fought the Algerian War as 2 bullets in his legs, started training what was called combat judo in the orphanage in the 50s, and karate, early karate when he came to France at Henri Play's dojo. And then after the war, he met Yoshinao Number, who came to Europe and really changed the karate in France, and he was training with him. And in 1968, 69, he moved to Sweden, opened a dojo there, and until now he's teaching there. And he's very known in Europe, but he came again 1975 to Israel just for a visit. 1970, around 1976, Hiroshi left to Japan. I went to the Israeli army. 2 months earlier to that, there was another teacher who came to replace Hiroshi, but I wasn't a lot of time with him. His name was Alberto. I forgot his last name. I think it was Shababo. He's featured in Black Belt yearbook in 1974 because he was a student at the school of Gogen Yamaguchi. But he was also being Metai. And his approach to fighting was life and death, like even to bite. The fighting then was really, I mean, we were covered with blood. I mean, I have to say, you came to the dojo, didn't know if you would survive. It was pretty scary. 1976, Talas came again to Israel with his student Ule, with 2 Japanese instructors. Then I took Ugura and Izumi. Ugura was very famous Japanese instructor from the Muay and knew really well. But again, I was in the army. I couldn't really go to that training. And around 1978, I was stationed in Haifa. One of the students of Tamas, Arya Berko Sensei, moved back from Sweden to Israel, opened a dojo with a shotgun guy called Bob Batwin, Pakistan and Australia. I was training in that dojo. At a certain point, Bob left to open his own dojo. I stayed with Arya Berko, because again, he was a student of Tamas Weber. Tamas came to Israel. I was the first Israeli to be tested for shotgun damage in Israel. Around that time also, I was offered to teach at the Air Force Cadet that was close to Haifa. First time that I got paid for teaching karate. And I was still in the army. So anyway, right after, I opened a dojo in Tel Aviv. The reason why I opened the dojo because there were 2 other dojos, but again, one was teaching judo and krav maga and jiu-jitsu, in Shotokan. It was not dedicated to karate. The other was pretty far away. And I wanted to do what I wanted to do. And I opened something that was really in the evenings, open about 4 to 5 times a week. By the way, that hall was the hall that the Israeli weightlifting team that was eliminated in the Munich 1972 Olympics. This is they were trained there. And when they get the place to the sports association to teach, they put a thin PVC floor, like half a centimeter, and that's where we were training. Again, around that time, Thomas Water returned to Israel. Now he came with a student that was a police officer, and I saw the student, was a big student, and you think big, it would be boy cannot fast. It was us exploding, stun us. And then I said to myself, okay, it's not him, it's the way he's teaching, it's the system. And I approached him and I said, can I come to your dojo? And he said, no problem. You're welcome. You can sleep in the dojo. You don't have to pay. You can count anytime you want and train as much as you want. I came a few months later with a good friend that we were training together since childhood. He passed away about 20 years ago. His name was Chezi, which is a nickname for Ezekiel Gorogorski. He was heavy. He lost about 11 kilos. That's about 24 pounds.
So a lot
We trained 4 sessions a day. It was really hard. Again, it was all about fighting, because 70s and early 80s was all about fighting. Yes, we trained kata too, but it was all about fighting. And when I returned to Israel, all my karate changed. I understood those principles and I started applying them. My dojo started to have get good traction. I had many students, and I had that dojo since 1988 until I came to America. Tama Sensei used to come to Israel once, twice a year for 3 weeks every time. So, and I went a few times to Sweden. The dojo became an organization of 12 dojo. The first the chief instructor was Arya Berko Sensei. Then he left. I took over, and this is until 1988 when I came to the States. Even since I came to the States, I kept on practicing, and until now I practice. I'm just a karate. That's on mute.
So before you came to the States, Nolan, you shot a movie.
I shot the movie. What? Okay. So now we're talking about
Other heads. Oh, so how did you go from being a karate bum, spending your time between Israel and Sweden, to making Farewell Terminator?
So I always loved cinema. And as a child, remember, I grew up in a country, there was no television. And way later, there was one channel, and pretty late. And I grew up watching movies. My favorite genre were Westerns. And yes, you go to see the American Westerns, but then,
So what was the first Western you saw?
oh, I cannot remember what was the first Western I
Because
saw.
I know you're a big fan of Once Upon a Time in the West.
Yes, but these are later.
Later.
I remember as a child, I used to go, like really a child, like once a week with my mother. She used to take me to a matinee. It was always Western. I remember seeing once a Western based on a Karl May book, Winnetou and Old Shatterhand. It was shot, by the way, in Yadran studio in Yugoslavia. Years later, I was there and I saw the outfit. I think it was The Treasure in a Silver Lake or something. Or another spaghetti western that was with Giuliano Gemma, one silver bullet, $1 and one was with Steve McQueen, was Nevada Smith. I really love the Italian westerns. I remember seeing Fistful of Dollars, and that was different than the American movies. I didn't know American or Italian. I didn't even speak English. We used to read the subtitles. And I came, but what fascinated me then was the fact that it was the first time I saw close up of the eyes, of the sweat, of the thumb next to the gun, and of the build-up. So again, went to my brother, and I told him, who is responsible? I told him about this fascination. I mean, but, and I said, what is responsible and makes a decision of what would be shown on the screen? And he told me there is such a person, he's called the director, and he is the person responsible for what is shown on the screen. So I really got interested in cinema and started reading everything that I could put my hand about cinema. So the director I learned was Sergio Leone. And Sergio Leone, for me, the master, became the master, especially after you see for a few dollars more and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, which I saw on a theater hundreds of times. Yeah. Not on a video, on theaters. Again and again and again, because some theaters, a matinee, it runs 6 shows a day. So I was to go in the morning, watch it until the evening, watch it and watch it and watch it and watch it and watch it. And really absorb it, you know? You mentioned Once Upon a Time in the West. When I saw it as a teenager, not in as a kid, I was 10, 11. I didn't like the movie. I saw it, I didn't appreciate something. Later, I learned to appreciate, and for me, it's my favorite movie. Is it? Yeah. It's an amazing movie. But you have to come, be patient to understand, and it's like watching an opera, you know? It's not for everybody. But if you appreciate, you see how amazing it is. So,
So now, before we dig deep into your film career and all
Yes.
this other stuff, let's talk a little bit about the French martial arts, Savate.
but before that, I want to say something,
Okay,
because it's still within martial arts.
got it.
And I want to talk about Rusty.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Sure, absolutely.
So I saw, I mean, I was talking about the James Bond movies and the Billy Jack, then the Mechanic. But I remember when the first Chinese movie came to Israel, that was Iron Fist or Five Fingers of Death. I didn't like it because I found it to be too violent, and the techniques I found to be very sloppy. And I said, I don't want to see any more Chinese movies that are. Then came Fist of Jordan. And I had a friend that studied with me that his brother was a black belt, Shotokan. And he recommended to see it, but also my teacher, Kadari, was doing demos in the theater before the shoot, before the movie. I went to see it. I'll never forget it. It was like a different experience.
Yeah.
Seeing Bruce Lee, seeing his charisma, seeing his techniques. When I saw it, when I walked back home, it was like walking on clouds. I told it years later to Shannon Lee. And another thing clicked in my mind, and I said, wait a minute. He actually started a new genre. You can make an all martial art movie that is a genre movie, and it's the genre is martial arts. And in high school, with a few friends, we did a few movies with Super 8. And one of the friends, by the way, is the biggest entertainment lawyer in Israel and became also a producer later. But we did it with 8 millimeter, you know? So this is how suddenly the love of cinema and the love of martial arts
Come together, yeah.
came together, yes.
We spoke about this recently. So let's talk about the effects Savate has had on Japanese martial arts or Japanese karate.
Or, okay. So I love history too. What I'm going to say is only based on observation. So I mentioned that karate techniques, some of them work fantastic. Some of them, you see them and you say, I don't think they're working. They do work because karate is extremely efficient if you understand what you're doing. If you understand what you're doing, many people imitate the movement of karate, but they don't understand it. They don't go deep to understand it. But for instance, let's take the side kick. When we studied then, we were standing like in a shikodachi or kibadachi, like horse riding stance, and we took the step from the front. And again, I saw it, I did it as a child, and I never used it in fighting because it felt inefficient to. Also, you learned to kick roundhouse kick, mawashi with the ball of the foot. That is called koshi. But even though in Kyokushin, we also learn to do it with the what is called to the instant. But we learn it really like the foot. And they don't do it in Sparta. So basically, I started years later to understand why. Because when you see Bruce Lee, again, I remember watching what was called Fist of Fury, or here the Chinese connection. Yeah. He was doing side kick, either skipping or the step from behind, which was super efficient. And I started using it in sparring in the dojo and really kicking people on the ribs, like, or even in the face, you know? That was efficient. But when we did it in Keon, it was still step from the front. Now, if you take, look at you for a second. If you take karate came to Japan only in 1921, 1942 by Gishin Funakoshi. If you take Okinawan karate, you don't have a side kick in Okinawan karate, you got the roundhouse kick. You have front kick, by geri. You have side stamping kick, what is called fumikomi geri or kansetsu geri, which is to the knee. Maybe you have a back kick, you have a crescent kick. These are really the kicks that you have. Not so many kicks. You see Chinese Kung Fu, this is what you see in traditional Chinese Kung Fu. I'm not talking about Wushu that is mobile. I'm talking about tradition. So those kicks that are super efficient came from Sunklex. And also, why is the side kick is being taken with a step forward and not from behind? Because, now let's go to history. In 1858, Alveolar period after Japan ceased to be feudal and they started to modernize themselves, the Showa era. And basically, the first military advisor that came were from France. France was then at the top. The Napoleon III, etc. Savate was developed in the streets of Marseille, and one of the people who made it super popular was Joseph Charlemagne, that even taught Alexander Dumas, that wrote The Three Musketeers and the Count of Monte Cristo. He was himself an officer stationed in Mexico during the Juarez Revolution and Maximilian during the Civil War, when France was trying to get a foothold in Mexico. I did a Western about it called Savate. Yes. And so the Japanese started seeing first military type of training, like training a lot of people as a group. The French did it, and then saw those kicks. By the way, when the French lost to the German, they replaced the French advisor with Prussian advisors, and they were even more militaristic in the way that they taught the Japanese. But if you look at the kicks of Sabat, the side kick, step from behind, is right there. The hook kick is there. The roundhouse kick is there. And you start to see it only in 1925, where the son of Kishin Funakoshi is doing Mawashi Geri. There's a picture of him keeping Mawashi Geri away. Giko Yoshitake Funakoshi. And this is how those kicks entered into karate. But because the Japanese, once they canonize something, it's really hard to change it, they canonize the side kick with a step from the front. But if I kick a stamping kick for becoming to the knee, I will take the step from the front because then I can crush it better.
So what was the theory? What was the theory Japanese has? Why do like what we call in Kempo a front crossover and then slide?
Because when you kick to the knee, the better impact is to kick with stepping forward because of the way the position of the hip towards the knee. Now the side stamping kick looks like a side kick, but it's not exactly a side kick. And if you want to do a good side kick, like Chudan or Jodan, like the body or face, you'll have to step from behind or skip or basically bring
The rear to the front.
yes,
Like what we call in Kempo a shuffle.
a shuffle, exactly. So, but it's hard once something was canonized. It's hard to change.
Now, was it hard because of this establishment, or was it hard just simply because it was drilled?
It was canonized. It was once it canonized, it's canonized. It's look, it's the Japanese, and I'm saying it with a lot of admiration, can take something simple and make it complicated, like drinking tea, a tea ceremony, okay? And because they take something simple and make it complicated, it has a lot of layers and it makes it better and refined. But sometimes you're stuck into some techniques. Remember, karate was a modern, it's not a Japanese art, and it was came only in the 20s. You know,
Where do you think then the Chinese got their kicks from? Because they didn't have a lot of kicks.
they saw it from karate. Because remember, karate, again, is a modern influence. Because I remember Ryan Ficking Sensei is telling me in 1966, 67, when Oyama sent 3 students to Thailand to fight, they changed, when they came back, they changed everything in Kyokushinkai. Kyokushinkai was some kind of an hybrid before of Goju and Shotokan, you know? And then it changed.
Is that where they got was it the trip to Thailand where they got now?
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, one won, one lost, one was a draw.
Yeah.
Exactly. And Kurosaki was there and he left Kyokushinkai, started Meiji.
So would it be fair to say, and again, this could be that at a given point in time, Thai box and Savate were two of the most effective martial arts from a fight perspective.
So here's the thing. We have to think that the goal of all of those martial arts, actually it was fighting arts. It was self-defense. Okinawa, karate, Tode, as it was called then, because the name karate came only in 1936, even though in
Where did the name karate come from?
the first person who came with that name was Chomo Hanashiro. I think in 1906 or 1908.
Was originally karate.
Was Tode, Chinese hand. Now, kara was written as tang, Chinese, and tang sudo still kept the same origin country. But in 1936, karate, they wanted to canonize it and to make it into a Japanese art. So they changed, and because Japan was then pretty militaristic and pretty nationalistic, they didn't want a connection, a Chinese connection. They changed it to empty. Empty from not empty hand, but the a concept of mushi.
Mushi, got it.
Yeah, the sense. So it's, and the do was added to it as a way of education. Like Jigoro Kaino would change Keino Jiu-Jitsu to Judo. Judo. Yeah, a gentle way. Because Jigoro Kaino,
Kido.
exactly, in the 1980s, said, okay, it's my style of Jiu-Jitsu, but I call it Do because it's a way of education. And he was smart enough to do it because at that time, the situation of Jiu-Jitsu in Japan was pretty, people looked bad at it. Because Japan was modernizing, they were looking at it as something that is passé. And he said, no, it's for education. He was also a friend of Pierre de Coubertin, that was one of the fathers of the Olympic movement, and he came with the gi, and it got traction. By the way, when Gishin Funakoshi came to Japan, it was Kano that is really liked him and really advised him, if you want, if you want karate to be successful in Japan, it has to go through the universities and through the noble people, like high class, and Jigoro Jishi Purakoshi adopted gi and ideas that he got from uh, Jigoro Kano and called it Karate Do. And until he died, every time he used to wake up in the morning, face the Kodokan and bow to the Kodokan. So this is books that he wrote,
The Reaper.
Ryukyu Kenpo Karate. But karate was written as Tode.
Tode.
Yeah, only in 1936, November 1936, the name was changed. I think November 10 or November 11, the name was changed in Okinawa to the way of the MPN karate, the way it is written now. So, but one thing that I would say, originally, these were arts of self-defense. If you take the original karate, original Muay Thai or any, it was arts of self-defense. And sadly, I mean, they got popular, yes, but they became sports. Like what I want to say, that karate originally, even in the 70s, was a pit bull. When they were learning, karate was a pit bull. You see karate today, it is like a builder.
Even in the 80s in Ireland, it was.
Yeah, okay, 1780s. But from pit bull, I see today it became a poodle. Are there better athletes?
Now, hold on. But do you say a poodle in terms of the way of teaching it, or in terms of the standard?
Both.
Oh, so basically, it's not as good today as it was then.
If you teach like the way you taught in the 60s or 70s, I don't think you pursued your own students.
It's soft.
It's soft to gain popularity. It's said, but it happens. It happened with any martial arts, and once they become a sport, they die. Look at judo in the 50s and 60s was it. It was combat judo. Judo, look, in the katas of judo that nobody trained in today, there are kicks. There are front kick, even a side stamping kick. Kansetsuge, Maige, that Kano took from a portion.
So let's go back. Okay, continue.
Look at Taekwondo in the 60s or 70s, they used to call it Korean karate. It became a sport, you know? Yes, you still have, I'm sure, Korean Taekwondo schools that teach it as a fighting art in martial arts. And even in karate, you know, people too much went into style, and the style became the gospel. And sometimes you throw the baby with the water, you know?
Yeah. Go back to Savate.
Yes.
So, back to Savate.
Yeah, but I'm not a saboteur, James.
No, I know.
It's from observation.
Yes. But back to that part of the conversation.
Yes.
Had you been able to come across who was responsible in Savate for passing on that to the Japanese, and then who was in return in the Japanese community was responsible for saying, let me adopt this and put it in?
So
Was it
I read on
Marxist?
the book. There was a French guy who came. I think he was trained even with Fuyama. I forget the name of it, but I know that the first one was Gishin Funakoshi-san Giko Yoshitake, that was athletic. Sadly, he died during World War II, but he adopted those kicks, and he also changed karate, because you look at Okinawan karate, his stances are very relaxed. They're high stances. And he, because they were teaching at the universities and it's youngsters that are athletic, the stances became longer and technique changed. So basically, Shotokan karate really was born the way it is by Yoshitake in the universities, Waseda and Takashuko in Japan, you know. Then Masayoshi Nakayama, and regulated it. And for this, I think that people have to see the podcast, the amazing podcast with Sensei Emi Farkas, my dear friend, that is a walking history of martial arts, as he really tells the story about it. It's amazing, you know? So, but basically, this is what happened to karate. Not all styles, because Kyokushin Tai took his own turn. I was talking about my Sensei Thomas Weber, that and Yoshinao Nambu, because their teacher was Chujiro Tani, that was a student of Ken Mabuni, that was Shitoryu Karate. And again, all of those names, those Japanese masters, let's call them, they didn't want to call it as styles. They had to call it as styles in the 1930s, the mid 30s in Japan, in order to get accepted and to be canonized in Japan. You had to call what you do a style. Shotokan, that was Shoto was the nickname of Funakoshi when he used to write poetry. Shito was the abbreviation of the two teachers of Maduni, Kanrei Gaona, that was also the teacher of Chojo Miyagi of Gojo-ryu, the founder of Shippo, Ken Uemazu, didn't want to call it a style. In the beginning, even call it Hankoryu, like half hard, half soft. Later, Chojo Miyagi also wanted to call it Hankoryu. At the end, Miyagi called it Goju, hard, soft style. And Mabuni abbreviated the style Shito to the name of Hitosu, Uncle Hitosu, and Kanrei Goana, that were his teachers. It's two lines of karate. Igaona Nahate, Hitos Ushuri. And I remember hearing from his two sons later, it was not really a mix. It's like all water and oil. They preserve both lines. But one of his students, Chujiro Tami, that also studied with Gojo, at a certain point, 1949, with the blessing of Mabuni left, created his own string called Shukukai, the way to all. And he created on scientific methods. And the base again was that double hip twist that I'm talking about, and the kick choke, and he called it Shukukai. One of his students, Yoshinao Nambu, came to Europe, later created his own string called Sankokai. Later we changed it to Nambudo. Doesn't matter. But it's like Ken Mabuni said, there are no really styles. Karate is war. There are no really styles. But every teacher emphasizes some of the principle and he adopts and works on one principle.
So why then did they have to enforce the word style?
Because the Japanese, from having so many styles that were fencing styles, like with the sword, they forced them in order. Look, the Japanese saw the Okinawans as islanders and as, I will not say buffoons, but islanders with crooked art. So in order to be accepted to the Japanese, to canonize your style, you have to Japanize it, i.e., to call it into a style. The way that I see it, and again, this.
So then when they came up with the word style, the name style,
Ryu is not a style, it was a school.
right, a school, but is that when they curriculumized it?
No, it was already in the 17th century, the 16th century, with sword styles. You see, though, in the 16th century, even before, you know?
So when did they curriculumized their systems? Like you have X amount of forms, kata,
So at a certain point, the teachers, because again, Japanese ways, okay, let's now systemize it. Okay, so we're using these katas, we're using those katas, so it started to be structured, okay? But okay, now it was not structured. Now let me say something in general. I don't believe in styles. I believe that there are two types of martial arts: high level and low level. Not doesn't matter if it's karate or judo, whatever. There is high level or low level. Because you can have high level karate, doesn't matter which style you call it. Goju, Shotokan, Kyokushin, Gosu, I don't care. And low level. The fact that you call it this style doesn't make it better. It's either high level or low level.
Well, I categorize slightly differently. I say you have martial fighters and you have martial artists. And you're going to have high level on both and low level on both.
No.
Why? Because a martial fighter necessarily is not a martial artist. Like in an MMA guy.
Because again, what is the goal of martial arts? Is it self-defense? When I saw it was self-defense. Well, is it fighting in tournaments, or is it self-development?
But if you look at it today, think about it. Like I have somebody comes in and they want to learn forms. They don't want to do the fighting. Don't learn this.
I understand. So it's like never change. Here's the thing. And again, I'm talking as a karate player. Karate is extremely efficient if you understand what you're doing.
100%.
15 years to understand, really, and to say it's very efficient if you understand what you're doing. If we're not doing an imitation of karate, if you really understand what you're doing. For instance, people are talking about what is called so-called traditional blocks and laughing at them. It's not efficient. This is not efficient. Yes, if you see it like this, and you say it's not efficient. If you say every block is a concept, and you take, let's say, the knife, story, which can be done like this, can be done like this. If you take it and you break it down, it's really one block, second block, third block, and the hand is not here, it's here.
But that's when we understand what you're
Also, the end is here because you created some kind of, the body is connected. Because if your hand here will push my hand, I'm like spaghetti. You put my hand here, I put it forward, I'm strong.
Well, right now, when you do that, I see 100 things.
Correct. I simply, but you see that it's a concept. Same with a hard look. People say, I never use a hard look. Yes, in free sparring, again, 55 years of experience, I never really used it. But if you take it, it's a concept because this is a block, unlocked, and this is the block. Okay? So then it's an idea behind it. Those blocks can be also manipulation of the hands. But if you take what I call uchiuke, some call it soto, if you take this, again, this can be the block, but this can be also, I'm going to your eyes, why I'm blocking, and I can block with the power or I can go against the power, and people say this doesn't work. If you don't know how to apply it correctly, it will not work.
Well, a lot of the time I find in my experience with people, when they don't understand what they're looking at, it's their way out. It doesn't work.
Correct. So it's the easy way out.
Correct. Yeah, I
It's the
agree
easy
with
way
you.
out.
Yes.
Also, if you think about it, most of the blocks in Okinawa, in original karate, have open hand blocks. Later, when it was taught from 1902 to 1904 in Okinawa to kids, when karate took its veil of secrecy, because it was secret, and they started teaching I'm going to kids. They say, let's close the hand because open hands are dangerous. Okay? People will punch. You don't see how many people are working on open hands or
I think there's a pro and a con. Teach.
I agree with you. But what happened was that it's easier to block with open hands. When you fight, you open hand because you relax. Either here or here, depends on the distance. So, and again, it's what are you looking for karate? Is it a sport? Is it self-defense? What are you looking for? Is it you build your character? By the way, karate, not only karate, it's all. Because I know, and you know, that when you train, let's say Japanese karate or any form, it teaches you to set goals. For instance, you come as a student to a dojo or a corner, whatever you see, get a student, they're doing stuff, and say, I will never be able to do it. But people tell you, okay, now you're a white belt But if you want to get your yellow belt, that's what you have to learn. And you look at this, say, I think I can do it. And then to an orange belt or a green belt, that's what you have to learn. Oh, I think I can do it. And you're doing it. And basically, et cetera, et cetera. It teaches you goal setting. It teaches you thinking in patterns, to organize what you do, and to take it step after step in a very methodical way. And then you apply it to work, to study, to cinema.
Anything you want.
Anything you want.
But here's
To music.
in order to do that, you need to have a good instructor for a kid.
Correct.
Now, let me tell you,
So too, for it.
my youngest student, Jingwan, who you'll see,
He's amazing.
I
saw it.
got his black belt in the senior American Kempo curriculum.
Yes, because
At 11.
some people are phenomenal. I have also a student like this.
Yes.
He can.
But you also have to teach it to him in a methodical fashion. So,
I have a guy that started, there's a guy now that studied for me, Zvika Margolinsky. He started when he was 6 years old. His father used to bring him to my dojo. Now, I didn't have kids class in my dojo because I was selfish. I opened a dojo to train what I was.
this was in Israel.
In Israel. And he was training with the adults, fighting with the adults. He came every day, every day.
Would you agree that you can teach a kid more than the adult?
I don't know if it depends on the kid. It
Yeah,
depends.
that's true.
It
Yes.
depends on the kid.
Right.
He was serious from day one. He's amazing today. He did also capoeira and aikido and Thai boxing. I think he got a silver or bronze medal in capoeira championship. He's amazing, but he was also talented. But it's talent, once Chuck Norris said it, is 5%, and hard work is 95%. And until now, you see movie, it's incredible. But again, he started as a kid, and all he knew was to fight with the adults. So,
Like this kid here.
yes, yeah, exactly. So there are some kids of, I think it's rare, but you're lucky to have some one or two like this in a dojo. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it really makes your teacher more bright.
Of course.
Now, Isaac, when you came to America, 88,
Yes.
you had a dojo at your garage.
Yeah, but before that, I
Okay,
came to
so-
America. So
Well, first of all, why did you come to America? Because you were already doing well in Israel. Let's talk about why. What was the goal?
So I had a very successful dojo. I was chief instructor of the dojos in Israel. Life was really nice. But I was still 30 years old, and I said to myself, I remember talking to my wife. I made the wife. Anyway,
So let's talk about it. Let's back up a little bit. Let's talk about Isaac had the most lovely, smart, intelligent, beautiful wife you could ever meet. Her name was Barbara, and Lord rest her, she's no longer with us. But on a personal level, she was extremely nice to me, as was Isaac and his whole family when I first moved here.
smart.
And she was very smart. Let's talk about Barbara, but how did you guys meet? Where did you meet? And when did you first go, I'm in love? Now, because we know you're in love with martial arts. We know you're in love with spaghetti westerns. We know you love Sergio Leone. When do you fall in love with Barbara?
So I had a dojo, right? One of my black belts, very known in Israel, was because he's a physician, was Southern medicine with. She was a lead student, and his mother actually was a surgeon. She operated my father in the back. Anyway,
Now, Barbara was from here,
from New Jersey.
from New Jersey, correct?
She came to Israel because she was very Zionist. She loved Israel. And basically, she studied medicine in Israel. In the Israeli program, not the American. The American program didn't exist then. Was non-existent. But so basically, she had to learn also hip. So basically, my student Raul Rodriguez, who is opened the first Chinese medicine institute and school in Israel, and the president worked with Japan. Is that school? So yeah, but he's also an MD, and Basically, he comes to me on there and says, I like the perfect moment for you. I was there, 25, 26, and I told him, Raul, I know you are hanging out with models. These are not my type. So I don't look like they look. They're too plastic for me. I want somebody real, you know. So no. She's real. She's the one for you. And I told her to come to the dojo. Okay. So she will come today. She's not coming. I'm training. I'm finishing the lesson. She's not there. Later I learned she came. There were steps. She hears people shouting Ki, and she sees this crazy guy in front of the class, like 40 people. And she's, this guy looks scary to me. I don't know to yes. And she goes away. Anyway, a few couple of months later, I had a nice dojo, right? And I had like nice Okinawan Kobudo weapons hanging on the wall. Somebody came into my dojo, stole the weapons. So I'm really upset. I'm calling my insurance. The insurance says no problem. It's insured. Go to the police station here and there. They get a let's file a complaint, an official complaint. We'll give you back the money. So I'm going to the police station. I'm filing a complaint. I remember that he is practicing in a tiny little hospital next to it. So I said, I'll go see him. We drink coffee. Maybe I'll see the girl, maybe not. And that's it. So I'm going there. He's there. And we're drinking coffee. And she's right there in the background. And he says, that's the one that I wanted you to meet. And I'm looking at her. And I really like what I say. And he says, should I invite her to drink coffee? And I said, yes, please do. So we're drinking coffee and whatever. And I'm talking to her. And then she leaves, saying to myself, wow, she's very nice. Fine and get married on day. You should be somebody like her. And I'm saying to myself, what makes somebody like her? It's her. She's the one. So she invites me to become to gossip, you know. But anyway, she invites me to eat pancakes like breakfast.
So she likes you too. The feeling is mute.
I don't know, but she actually didn't. She told me after, you came with a black leather jacket, you have a crew cut and a beard, you look like a criminal. But anyway, she invited me for pancakes and pancakes. And we said, who eats pancakes? You know, it's something we still had one place in the country to get pancakes. One. So I'm going, here comes a stack of pancakes and stack of bananas. I hate bananas of the audience. And I'm being honest, says, I don't like bananas. And she's what a jerk. And so we're talking, you know, it's a bit awkward. Then there's a guitar right there. And I told her, can I play the guitar? I didn't know she's an amazing guitar player and a singer. And she thinks to herself, he will make a fool out of himself. I take the guitar and I play. And she's like, oh, who knows how to play? Like finger style. And she said, saying to herself, he's even better than I am. So basically, this is how we started going out. And we one day went to Jerusalem and together. And since that day, just stayed together until she passed. 1984. 83, 84. Yeah, around 4.
So now,
83.
when you make farewell Terminator,
Good.
are you with Barbara at this point?
At in the beginning, no. And at the end, we meet in the middle. So, and I show her our building, the medicine building in Tel Aviv University. That's where I studied. It was very close, next building to the film department. And I invite her, by the way, this is before like we're together, to see, she wanted to see, because we're editing the movie. And she sees we're editing the movie on a flat plate. And for her, it's violent. And I remember I took her to see Karate Kid. She told me it's a violent movie. I said, it's kids' momentum. You say it's a violent movie. No, it's a violent movie. Karate Kid was a violent movie for her. And man, took a long, took a long road for her to open her mind. And years later, she used to go to see a dojo, any dojo, and she was telling me, "This guy is good. That's not real. That's a low level. This guy is teaching Coca-Cola karate."
She has an
She had
eye.
an eye. By then, she had an eye. Yeah. So she had a fantastic, terrific eye. Yeah.
So you made Farewell Terminator.
Yes.
What was the goal with that? Was that you just, was there an intention behind that, or was that just
Yes.
made for fun?
So before talking about Farewell Terminator, we'll do a step back and talk about really education. So my parents were born in Salonika, Greece. The Jews of Salonika were originally the Jews, their ancestors, basically. They were the descendants of the Jews that were kicked from Spain in 1492. They kept on speaking, and I still speak that dialect, a 15th century Spanish called Judeo-Espanol. You had that, I can speak that, because the Ottomans were smart and they let, after they were kicked from Spain, the Ottoman absorbed them. They let every minority kept their independence, cultural independence. This is how the Bulgarians, the Armenians remain Armenians, the Jews remain Jews, the Greek remain Greeks, etc. So they spoke in Salonika, which is called now Thessaloniki in northern Greece, the second biggest city. It was almost a Jewish city. They had a big majority, Jewish majority. They kept on speaking that Spanish for it until 1943, when the German came and went to Auschwitz and Bergen-Belsen, etc. And about 98% of them died in the camps. But their education was also French education. Growing up in a house where we speaking Hebrew, this French, and Spanish is Spanish. Like multicultural, and education is very, very, very important. Because what said my father in Auschwitz was the fact that he was a mechanic. And he learned in a very prestigious school called Finidis in Saloniki or Thessaloniki. And this is what really saved in Auschwitz and kept him going. So for my father, the way that he sees education is you need to have a skill. My brother went to high school, to a very high level high school, but it also taught him to be to understand electronics in airplane. This is what he did in the Air Force. And then he went to the university, became an engineer, and they developed many things that are now protecting, like Israel became a radar expert, like the Iron Dome, that etc. Now, suddenly I was a rebel. Instead of me learning a skill, my parents wanted me to be, okay, don't be a dentist, because medicine in Israel, probably in Ireland, is social medicine. Doctors don't do a lot, but dental was private. You can make money or become a CPA. I wanted to do movies, which is a total. I was a rebel, but there was a cause in the rebel. From day one, I dreamed, and I said I want to go and study cinema because I want to do those what Barbie used to call stupid protection movies, B movies, because I had the sense that I can make it in it. Remember, coming from a house with Holocaust survivor parents, even to think big, I call it was a luxury. So I didn't try to think too big, I tried to think realistic. So from day one at Tel Aviv University, I had the goal. And the goal was I'm going to own basically got the skills, understand, and try to dedicate it or to make it and to do action movies. That was from day one no plan. And then remember, no videos, no nothing. Do a movie on 60 millimeter. And the goal is to do an half an hour movie because this is your carte de visite, your visit card. This is what you can show. So I wanted to do half an hour action movie. It was never done in Israel in action movie before. Never. And that's what I wanted to do. That was my goal when I knew Florentine, to do something. And you see there the influence, of course, of martial arts movie, or spaghetti westerns. You see that influence in there. You know, it's a short, movie, very low level, but it's in there, you know. So that was the goal of doing that movie.
And you shot that in what year, Alexei?
I shot it. I started shooting it 83, 84. 84. Yes. And 83, 84.
But it lay in the archive for many years.
For many years because it took me time to edit it. Because the first person who edited, I didn't like the way it was edited. Then I tried to edit it myself. Didn't work. Then I went to somebody that studied with me, Joseph Greenfeld. He was a brilliant editor. And he looked at me and says, Isaac, okay, I'm going to edit it. But I don't want to say a word until I finish. So I said, okay, I'm not going to say a word. And he finished what he finished, and I was blown away. I was blown.
The film's for what, 20?
27 28 minutes.
Yes, 30 minutes. Okay.
Yeah, something like
Yeah. Now, was your goal to always be a director, or you just said, I'm going to, with Farewell Terminator, you're like, okay, well, I'm going to make this and it's my baby, and so let me just direct it. Was the goal to be a director, or was that something that happened?
Yes, only a director. I was not interested in nothing else. In Farewell Terminator, I had to do something to fight because there was no one else that I could know that I could drive him crazy, can go, it's fun and do it. You know?
So why did you come to America? Was it to be a director?
So here's what happened. Yes,
Was that the intention?
yes, a few things that. So I am finished with a movie in a country that has no industry or a small industry, and they're not doing this kind of movies. And action movies are considered the garbage of the garbage of the garbage because everybody is pseudo intellectual. I would say it in a nice way.
You're talking about at that time.
At that time, even now, they're intellectuals, but yes, anyway, at that time, I mean, action movie in Israel, when there's no industry, it's like lunacy, you know? It's like an Ocho report. I mean, it's terrible, you know?
And they think you're crazy.
Yeah, and they think that you're crazy, you know? What is it? It's action. We don't like action. Even to do Throw a Terminator, I had to give the movie to in Jerusalem to get some money to do the movie. There was like a fund that was a governmental fund, whatever, in the Ministry of Industry, and they read the script and they give you money if they like it. I gave them the script, they kicked me out. You want to talk to yourself? I'm crazy. This is communist. They kicked me out of it. Kicked me out of the office. One of my teachers, actually two, totally different taste of mine. One was artistic and whatever. Says, guys, see what he did, the short stuff that he did in first, second, third year before you tell him no. See what he can do. So they called me again, they put pressure. So I showed them. And I changed the script. What was a file that is about 2 minutes in the movie or 2.5 minutes, I made it in one line in the script. Like it's non-existent. And they said, fine, we'll give you none. When they saw the dailies, I had to trick it on it, basically. They saw the dailies, they freaked out, saying, what did this cut? We don't think it will cut. I'll say, it will cut like but. They saw the fight, they were like, they wanted to kill. When the movie won, it won all the awards, went to a festival. But again, I think it was luck because it was the last movie, it was about 12-hour day that people saw movies from the beginning, or maybe 14 hours to the evening. It was all artistic movie, abstract movie, depressing movies, and whatever, political movies. Suddenly, the last movie came was fellow Terminator. Everybody like chewed up, and they saw something that is no pretentious, just a stupid action man. Beautiful wars.
You and Sheldon have an interesting crossover because he's got Firefight, which was a really small movie he did with the Ree brothers.
Yeah.
Man, Brian Thompson,
Correct.
Frank Dukes,
Correct.
and you got Fear about Terminator.
Correct.
And between both of you, directed some of the best martial arts movies.
Correct.
It's an interesting crossover,
Correct.
you know.
Correct.
And so now you come to
So wait, silly. I know I have a movie. It's an award-winning movie.
so you have a little leverage now.
Now, in the university, they're opening a company to do commercials and whatever. I'm pretty visuals. You're not going. I'm out. I'm not in the club. And I'm saying those. And then I'm in the dojo every year that I have to renew the contract. I have to fight with the associations they want to raise it. And I'm like trying to push them down. And I remember telling Barbara, I'm sick and tired of teaching again, white belt. This is how you close a freeze. This is how you spend. This is Aikudachi. This is Zenbutsu. I'm 30. I don't see myself. I don't want to see myself.
Are you married?
Yeah, at this part. Yeah, I'm married to this.
And do you have any kids yet?
No. I don't see myself doing it. You know? Right. At that time, Chuck Norris comes with a movie in Israel. Not Delta Force. When he came to Delta Force, I met him. But he's coming with his brother Aaron. And there are the Hilton Hotel not far from where we're living. Barbara said, why don't you write him a letter or give him the tape to watch? I said, fine, nothing to lose. I'm writing a small letter, leave it at the desk. I got the phone on the floor, his name, Norris is meeting. Yeah, the movie. What are you doing here? You should try it in America.
Aaron says.
Aaron says. So I want to do it. I'm like I feel that I kind of being rejected in Israel even by my own university. So, and I'm tired of being in the dojo. And I'm telling Barbara, listen, Barbara, you live only once. Let's try it. We'll give it a shot, you know. I was never dreaming of going to the studios. I knew, you know, it's like Sun Tzu. You know yourself, know the enemy. I know myself. I know that in that genre, I can make it. Because I saw already American movies that were done in this genre. And I said, the fight's not that good. And the direction is not that good. I know I can be better. By the way, another movie that inspired me was American Ninja. Oh yeah, because Shmuley is Israel.
So let's now hold on. Let's back up. Let's talk about
Just one second. Yeah, sir. And Canon Fisher, they're Israelis. Before making the final decision, by the way, and then you can ask, somebody gave me the address of Shmuley. I met him.
in Israel.
No, here. I met him before I came and made the final decision. And he tells me the same thing. You can make it here. And
Hold on, what do you mean you met him here before you made the final decision?
to come to move here.
So you moved
I
in for a trip.
scouted because I have a family here. I have relatives here.
So you came for a trip.
I came for a trip with Barbara and the editor.
So you were trying to figure out, I don't know,
was trying to sense, because what happened was Barbara by then she wanted to get into a residency here because we're coming. She wanted to get accepted to a residency here, and she came here and she was accepted after to USC to become a pathologist.
it was perfect move here.
It was, but it was shaky. Yeah, yes. I mean, remember, you come in the beginning, you have no,
But perfect in the sense that it's Hollywood.
it's, yes, yeah, exactly.
Yes.
No, it was looking for USC here because I wanted to be here. We didn't move because of her, we moved because of me. She didn't want to come. She was pretty upset at me that I'm taking her out of Israel. The only time we fought, really, and it was, I came to Israel because I love it and I want to dinner. He live here, and that was my dream. Now I have to eat to your dream and to come to America. That was Yeah, that was.
So you guys come here,
Yes.
meet Shmulek.
Yes.
How do you meet Shmulek?
Somebody, a friend, a mutual friend,
What year was this?
87.
So he's already making American Inch 2. Close.
I don't know if he made two or not.
But it was somewhere there.
Somewhere, yeah.
Because one was
A
in
mutual
85.
friend that is a line producer in Israel and a producer and a director, Ricky Sheldon, that's his name. That I met him. They were doing Iron Eagle in Israel, and he was a line producer. And I met him. It's a small country, you know. And he knows what I want. And so you have to meet my friend Shmulik. And he gives me his phone number. So Bar and I are going to Shmulik, meeting him and Israel Fares. And from the minute that we meet, it's like we become very close friends, you know. So, and he really helped me a lot. So we're coming here on July 28, 1988. It's my birthday. I'm 30 years old. I'm landing in America. Yeah, now.
So you land here, you base yourself here, you find your way. When do you first meet the deadly duo? Menachem Golan and Yoram Dokas.
So it's not that it was not that easy because I came here first. Now you have to adapt to a new country, new language, new habits,
Your way of life, everything.
new way of life. Look, I'll give you a very nice example. Barbara and I got married in Milton, Massachusetts, 1985, August 1985. And we got married there, living in Israel. We're about to return from Israel. And I tell her, Barbara, let's get our pictures at the studio because the studio has the negatives. I'm going to the studio and they tell me, listen, our policy is not to get the negatives. And I say, why? I don't live here. I live very far. No, if you want more pictures, you contact us. And I said, but what if you close? We'll never close. Guess what? I post. We come to Israel. We do a party for everybody. Somehow the album of the pictures, the big album, gets lost. Gets lost.
The studio closes.
Going to the studio, there is loose. Luckily, we have a small album of the wedding until now. That's all we have. The studio closes. And now, I forgot the most important thing. Laura tells me when I'm arguing with the studio, she comes, let's come out. It's sick. This is America. This is the way things are done here. You don't argue. I told her, Parker, what if they will close? They will not close. She told me they will not close. So basically, the studio closes, right? So now we're coming 88, we're coming to America. Or does you remember this is America, it's not Israel. You cannot argue. So, okay, I understand. We live. Our neighbors are Armenians, Mexicans, everybody's a little bit for everybody. So after a few weeks, I said, look, I don't know which American you're talking, but look where we are. People are living and you in a good way, you know. Yeah. You can argue your way out, in or out, you know. And she tells me, but I was very smart. You're right. I agree with you. It's not like Boston. This was 1988.
So you're here, Isaac. And so I hear, sure, how do you get going here?
So first you have to, I come here. Now Barbara is working, but she's a slave. She's not really earning anything, you know. And I said, okay, I'm going to do anything possible to work and to find myself working in the movies. I applied to work in a supermarket, whatever. I'm not accepted because I have to put my education and whatever. Accepted. Even Domino's Pizza, I'm not accepted. So I started working in a building in 100 South doing, I'm going to forget it. And lucky to me, the guy that shot Feral Terminator, David, Namir, that his mother was American and was also trying to make it here as in DP. And so we're working, the two of us, and every hour at night you have to stamp the clock, so yeah. And the funny thing there, one of the people we knew there was producer Israel Ringer, super nice guy, and years later he produced Unspeeded Pre. Wow. There was his name, Israel Ringer. What a nice person. Anyway, So I'm working, and I start even to teach karate at like a Jewish high school, a boys and girls high school. Also started trying to make my way to movies. And the first hints that I got was first St. Vincent. They were doing a movie, Legion of Iron. Jacob Bressler and Jacob Benson. So I came there as a guard. That's how I met the by the way. And then I ended up.
So you met Evie Forrest?
Yeah, he came just to visit.
Okay.
And ended up like doing choreography and then some second unit.
What movie was that?
Legion of Fire.
Legion of Iron.
Legion of Fire. Then I had a student in the dojo that his relative was Ronnie Hadar, the producer. And he told me to call Ronnie Hadar. And I met a son of a distributor, Danish being, that a friend of his was Paul Smith, the actor Paul Smith from Midnight Express. And I didn't know that Ronnie and Paul are the best friends ever, you know? So I'm meeting Ronnie, I'm meeting Paul, and they give me guidance. Ronnie did a few movies, gave me a chance to work for it. The movie that Ronnie did, Down the Drain,
Okay.
we went to shoot it. It was with Andrew Stevens, John Matuzak. I had to, we had to shoot in a real drain, like big drain. I'm going to cut it at a day or 2 days before shooting, and they were because it was raining, and it's full of water. You cannot shoot them. And I go to
Oh, you're down in the sewer.
yeah, and I said, guys, we cannot shoot it. So the flood. The next day, they brought we rented
A pump.
yeah, like the fire. And me and another guy, we stood there, clean with water. The water pushed it away, and then they could shoot it. And then I remember I got first a picture of the drain full of water, and after picture of the drain empty, a camera, those songs, right? And Ronnie gave me the picture, said, one day when you be a big director, do those pictures with you. Anyway, the next movie thing, he said, okay, this movie you are in choreographing the fights, and we double, I double Ray Sharp, and you do some second movies. So trusted me, we just trusted me, no? So, and I met also the first movie I worked totally as a PA or free was a movie by Paul Leader, the father of Mimini. There used to be very low budget movies, very artistic movies. This is analytic, you know. How did I go to Paul Leader? I don't even remember at this point, but I said I'm going to do anything possible to get into that industry and to know people.
So your first movie to direct in America?
Okay. First movie to direct in America was Desert Hook. Was later called Desert Kickboxer, HBO. Here's the story. So I'm in town, and I'm like trying to learn the rope, as we say. Okay, and I understand that in order to do a movie,